Welcome back. Tonight we're going to drift through the world of legendary Pokémon, those rare and powerful creatures that exist at the edges of myth and reality. There's something calming about exploring the stories behind these beings, the way they weave through regions and timelines, connecting everything in the Pokémon world. So settle in, find a comfortable position, and let your mind wander as we explore these fascinating details together. The concept of legendary Pokemon began with the very first games. When Red and Blue were being developed, the team at Game Freak wanted to create creatures that felt genuinely special, ones that players would only encounter after long journeys. Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres became the first legendary trio, each one tucked away in a hidden location. The idea was simple but effective. These weren't just rare Pokemon, they were rewards for exploration, symbols of mastery over the elements. Articuno represented the chill of winter, found deep within the Seafoam Islands, where ice and cold ruled. Zapdos embodied the crackling energy of storms, dwelling in the abandoned power plant, where electricity still hummed through forgotten machinery. Moltres became the living flame, residing at the peak of Victory Road, where only the most determined trainers would climb. Before we continue deeper into tonight's journey, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment and let me know where in the world you're listening from right now. And if these gentle explorations through Pokemon lore help you unwind, go ahead and subscribe so you never miss another journey into this world we all love. The legendary birds drew inspiration from mythology across cultures. Articuno's design pulls from the Arctic tern and the concept of the ice bird, a creature from various cold climate folklores that brought winter wherever it flew. The name itself combines Arctic with the Spanish word for one, reflecting its status as the first of the trio in the Pokédex. Zapdos took elements from the Thunderbird of Native American legend, a powerful spirit said to create thunder and lightning with the beating of its wings. The designers wanted something that looked both mechanical and organic, reflecting the duality of electricity as both a natural phenomenon and a human-controlled force. Moltres borrowed heavily from the phoenix, that immortal bird of flame that dies and is reborn from its own ashes. The designers gave it a more aggressive appearance than traditional phoenix depictions, with sharp angles and fierce eyes that suggested this wasn't a gentle symbol of rebirth, but a force of destructive fire. The stat distributions for the legendary birds were carefully balanced during development. Each one received a base stat total of 580, which at the time made them significantly more powerful than most other Pokémon, but not overwhelmingly so. Articuno was given the highest special defense, making it a defensive wall that could weather attacks while freezing opponents. Zapdos received the best special attack among the three, turning it into an offensive powerhouse, capable of striking down foes with devastating thunderbolts. Moltres fell somewhere in between, with balanced offensive stats that made it versatile in battle. This careful distribution meant that no single bird dominated the others completely, creating a genuine choice for players about which one suited their team best. Mewtwo's creation story represents one of the darkest elements in the entire Pokémon franchise. The abandoned mansion on Cinnabar Island holds journals that document the scientific attempts to clone Mew, a mythical creature whose DNA supposedly contains the genetic code of all Pokémon. The entries begin with excitement and hope, describing successful cell cultivation and early development stages. Then the tone shifts dramatically. Later entries mention complications, failed attempts, and growing concerns about the creature's psychological state. The final entry simply states that Mewtwo proved too powerful to control and escaped, destroying the facility in the process. This narrative of scientific hubris, of humans attempting to improve upon nature and losing control of their creation, echoes classic science fiction themes while adding the layer of genuine tragedy to the Pokémon world. The mythology surrounding Mew itself is fascinatingly vague. According to Pokédex entries, Mew is believed to be the ancestor of all Pokémon because it can learn every technical machine and possesses the genetic information of every species. However, the entries always use phrases like believed to be or said to contain, never stating these claims as absolute fact. This intentional ambiguity left room for interpretation and debate among fans for decades. Some researchers in the games claim Mew lived abundantly in ancient times before going nearly extinct. Others suggest it might be extraterrestrial in origin. The developers deliberately created this mystery, understanding that sometimes the questions are more compelling than the answers. Mew's discovery in the games themselves became the stuff of legend. Originally, Mew was intended to be completely unavailable through normal gameplay, existing only as an event distribution Pokémon. However, a glitch in the code allowed players to encounter Mew through a specific sequence of actions involving the Nugget Bridge trainer and a wild Abra. This glitch wasn't discovered widely until years after the game's release, when fans began sharing information through early internet forums. The fact that Mew could be obtained through this unintended method only added to its mystique, turning it into a sort of holy grail for dedicated players who refused to accept that any Pokémon was truly unobtainable. The concept of legendary Pokémon expanded significantly with the second generation. Gold and Silver introduced multiple legendary groups, each with its own mythology and place in the world. Ho-Oh and Lugia represented a new tier of legendary creature, mascots, for their respective games with base stat totals of 680. The developers wanted these two to feel genuinely godlike, creatures of such power that they shaped the regions they inhabited. Ho-Oh's connection to the Brass Tower fire in Ikritek City created one of the most compelling backstories in the franchise. According to legend, the tower burned down centuries before the game's events, and 3 unnamed Pokémon perished in the flames. Ho-Oh descended from the heavens and resurrected these creatures as Raikou, Entei, and Suicune, the legendary beasts that now wander Johto. This resurrection myth draws from multiple cultural sources. The Phoenix connection is obvious with Ho-Oh, but the specific act of resurrection and transformation references Buddhist and Shinto concepts of reincarnation and spiritual renewal. The three beasts themselves were designed to embody different aspects of the tower fire. Raikou represents the lightning bolt that struck the tower, its design featuring angular, electric patterns and a fierce expression. Entei embodies the fire itself, with smoke-like mane and a volcanic theme that suggests the destructive heat that consumed the building. Suicune symbolizes the rain that finally quenched the flames, appearing as the most graceful of the three, with flowing ribbons and a serene demeanor that contrasts sharply with its two companions. The decision to make the legendary beasts roaming Pokémon created a unique gameplay experience. Rather than waiting in a single location for players to find them, these three fled from battle to battle across Johto, forcing trainers to track them through careful planning and patience. This mechanic reflected their characterization as wandering spirits, creatures still searching for something they lost in the fire. The frustration of finally encountering one only to watch it flee became a shared experience for an entire generation of players. Some spent hours using the Pokédex's location tracker, flying between routes and hoping to corner a beast in a place where escape was impossible. Others resorted to using Mean Look or Arena Trap to prevent their escape, turning the hunt into a strategic puzzle rather than a simple encounter. Lugia's mythology connects it to the sea in ways that weren't immediately obvious in the games. While Ho-Oh clearly represents the sky and sun, Lugia dwells in the depths of the Whirl Islands, a master of the ocean who surfaces only rarely. The anime movie The Power of One expanded on this role, depicting Lugia as the guardian who maintains balance between the legendary birds. When human interference disrupts this balance, nearly causing an apocalyptic storm, Lugia emerges to restore order. This protector role wasn't as prominent in the games, but the films helped shape how fans understood the creature's place in the world. The movie's musical theme, Lugia's song, became so iconic that it was referenced in later games, creating a feedback loop where anime lore influenced game canon. The design of Lugia itself represents a fascinating blend of influences. It's often described as a sea dragon, but it also incorporates elements of plesiosaurs, those ancient marine reptiles with long necks and flippers. The predominantly white coloration with blue accents creates an almost ethereal appearance, something that doesn't quite belong to the physical world. Its signature move, Aeroblast, deals massive damage and has a high critical hit ratio, reflecting Lugia's dual nature as both a diving creature and a being of the sky. The move's animation in later games shows Lugia launching a concentrated blast of wind, a technique that feels appropriately godlike for a creature of its status. The legendary dogs, as they were commonly called, despite some of them clearly resembling cats, developed distinct personalities through their sparse appearances in the games. Raikou carried an aggressive, almost predatory presence, its angular design and fierce expression suggesting a creature of pure lightning given physical form. The Pokédex describes it as descending with thunderclouds, crashing down to earth like a lightning bolt. This characteristic influenced how fans perceived it as something wild and untamable. Entei's Pokédex entries speak of volcanoes erupting when it barks, positioning it as a force of geological power. The anime movie Spell of the Unknown gave Entei a more sympathetic portrayal, but in the games it remained an enigmatic entity associated with volcanic fury. Suicune became the most popular of the three, partly because Crystal version gave it a central role in the story. Players encountered it multiple times throughout their journey, always at significant locations like Tianwood City and Route 25. These encounters built a narrative suggesting that Suicune was testing the player, judging whether they were worthy of capture. This made catching it feel earned rather than lucky, transforming a random battle into the culmination of a long relationship. The Crystal version storyline elevated Suicune's role even further by connecting it to Eusine, a researcher obsessed with the legendary beast. Eusine's pursuit of Suicune mirrors the player's own journey, creating a parallel narrative where two individuals seek the same goal for different reasons. Eusine wants to understand Suicune, to unravel its mysteries through observation and study. The player simply wants to catch it, to add it to their team, and use it in battle. This contrast highlighted different ways of relating to Pokémon, raising subtle questions about ownership and partnership that the games rarely address directly. When Suicune finally allows itself to be captured, it chooses the player over Eusine, a moment that validates the player's worth while simultaneously disappointing a character who dedicated his life to this pursuit. Celebi introduced the concept of time travel to the Pokémon world. This psychic grass type from the forests of Ilex could supposedly move freely through time, appearing in different eras to ensure forests remained healthy. The time travel element opened narrative possibilities that later games would explore more fully. The GameCube title, Pokémon Colosseum, featured time travel as a plot device, and the fourth generation would make it central to the legendary trio of Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina. But Celebi pioneered the concept, establishing that some Pokémon existed outside normal temporal constraints. The Ilex Forest Shrine, where Celebi appears, became one of the most atmospheric locations in Gold and Silver. The shrine itself is simple, just a small altar surrounded by trees. But the GS Ball event added layers of meaning to this quiet space. Players had to obtain a special item, travel to the forest, and perform a specific ritual to summon Celebi. This process, though only available through events that most players never experienced, created a sense that certain Pokémon required more than strength to encounter. They demanded reverence, patience, and sometimes a touch of magic that couldn't be achieved through normal gameplay. The fact that so few players actually obtained Celebi this way only enhanced its legendary status, making it a creature that existed more in stories and second-hand accounts than in actual player experiences. The third generation brought legendary Pokémon that could reshape entire regions. Kyogre and Groudon represented primal forces, ancient creatures that created the sea and land respectively. Their conflict formed the central plot of Ruby and Sapphire, with villainous teams attempting to awaken one or the other to fulfill misguided environmental goals. Team Aqua wanted to expand the oceans, believing this would create more habitats for water Pokémon. Team Magma sought to increase landmass, thinking more ground would benefit human and Pokémon civilization. Both teams failed to consider that dramatically altering the planet's geography would cause catastrophic consequences, a commentary on extremist environmentalism that felt surprisingly mature for a children's game. Kyogre's design draws heavily from orcas and the biblical Leviathan, that massive sea creature of Jewish mythology. The Pokédex claims Kyogre can expand the oceans through torrential rain, a power that sounds almost apocalyptic in scope. Its signature move, Origin Pulse, sends shockwaves through the Earth itself, causing massive water-type damage to everything in its path. The primal reversion mechanic, introduced in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, gave Kyogre an even more fearsome form, with glowing buttons that suggested barely contained power. Primal Kyogre's ability, Primordial Sea, creates weather that nullifies fire attacks entirely, making it nearly impossible to counter with traditional methods. Groudon embodies the Earth's tectonic forces. Its design resembles a dinosaur crossed with volcanic rock, all sharp edges and armored plating. The Pokédex entries describe it as capable of evaporating water with intense heat and expanding continents through volcanic eruptions. This puts it in direct opposition to Kyogre, creating a natural conflict that threatens to tear the region apart whenever both awaken simultaneously. Primal Groudon takes this even further, its ability Desolate Land creating harsh sunlight that completely nullifies water attacks. This creates an interesting symmetry where the two primals can theoretically stalemate each other, neither able to deal significant damage to its opposite. Rayquaza serves as the mediator between these two forces. Dwelling in the ozone layer, far above where most creatures can survive, Rayquaza descends only when Kyogre and Groudon's conflict threatens to destroy everything. Its dragon-flying typing positions it above the land-sea dichotomy, able to counter both through sheer power and speed. The Pokédex describes ancient people witnessing Rayquaza's intervention, watching it descend from the heavens to quell the other two legendaries. This establishes a hierarchy among the Weather Trio, with Rayquaza clearly positioned as the strongest. Its Mega Evolution, achieved without a held item, only reinforced this dominance. Mega Rayquaza possesses the highest base stat total of any Pokémon that's not Eternamax Eternatus, making it so powerful that competitive formats eventually banned it to a tier of its own. The Hoenn region contained other legendary creatures that didn't fit into the Weather Trio, but had their own mythologies. The legendary giants Regirock, Regitu, and Registeel were sealed in chambers throughout the region, accessible only through solving complex puzzles based on Braille. This design decision was brilliant in its obscurity. Most players who found the sealed chambers couldn't decipher the dots on the wall, forcing them to either research Braille or seek help from others. The use of Braille wasn't random. The developers wanted to create a sense of ancient mystery, of secrets that required lost knowledge to uncover. The fact that the puzzles genuinely challenged players added to the satisfaction of finally awakening the giants and capturing them. Each Regi represents a different material. Regirock is composed entirely of rocks from various regions, its body held together through some mysterious force. When damaged in battle, it supposedly finds new rocks to repair itself, constantly rebuilding and reshaping its form. This gives it an almost Frankenstein quality, a creature assembled from mismatched parts that somehow functions as a cohesive whole. Regis's body is frozen at temperatures near absolute zero, so cold that nothing can melt it. The Pokédex claims that Regis appeared during an ice age, though whether it caused the ice age or simply thrived in those conditions remains unclear. Registeel is composed of a metal that cannot be identified, something that doesn't exist naturally on Earth. This suggests either extraterrestrial origin or creation through processes humans don't understand, adding another layer of mystery to the already enigmatic giants. Regigigas, the creator of the other three, wouldn't be officially revealed until the fourth generation, but its presence loomed over the Regi trio even in Generation 3. According to legend, this colossal Pokémon shaped the continents themselves, pulling them into their current positions. The rope-like designs on the other Regis's bodies hint at their connection to Regigigas, suggesting they were constructed to serve some purpose or fulfill some task their creator assigned them. When players finally encountered Regigigas in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, they found a creature so powerful that it had to be weakened for gameplay balance. Its ability, Slow Start, halves its attack and speed for the first 5 turns of battle, representing a sort of grogginess as it awakens from ancient slumber. Let me pause here to ask you something. If you're finding these facts as soothing as I hope they are, consider subscribing to join us for more quiet journeys through Pokémon lore. We explore everything from the tiniest details to the grandest mysteries, all in this same calm atmosphere. Latias and Latios, the Eon duo of Hoenn, represented a different kind of legendary Pokémon. Rather than being world-shaping forces or ancient guardians, they were simply highly intelligent creatures with powerful psychic abilities. The anime movie Heroes gave them personalities and a bond with humans, depicting them as playful but protective beings who guarded Alto Mare through generations. In the games, they roamed Hoenn much like the legendary beasts roamed Johto, making them equally difficult to track down and capture. Their signature moves, Mist Ball for Latias and Luster Purge for Latios, both dealt psychic damage while lowering stats, creating a defensive and offensive utility that made them valuable in competitive play. The concept of gender among legendary Pokémon created some interesting lore possibilities. Most legendaries are classified as genderless, unable to breed, and existing as singular entities. But Latias is always female, and Latios always male, suggesting that multiple individuals of each species exist across the world. The Pokédex supports this interpretation, describing them as highly intelligent Pokémon that flock together, implying populations rather than unique creatures. This makes them feel more natural less like gods and more like rare animals that happen to possess extraordinary powers. Jirachi, the wish-making steel psychic type, sleeps for 1,000 years before awakening for 7 days. During those 7 days, it can supposedly grant wishes written on notes attached to its head. This sleeping-waking cycle gives Jirachi an almost Rip Van Winkle quality, a creature that experiences time differently than the world around it. The 1,000-year sleep serves a practical purpose in the lore, as Jirachi needs to absorb energy from a special comet that passes overhead once every millennium. Without this energy, it cannot awaken or grant wishes, tying its power to celestial events beyond human control. The wish-granting aspect of Jirachi connects to folklore about shooting stars and wishes, but with a Pokémon twist. Rather than making a wish on a star, trainers write their wishes down and hope Jirachi will fulfill them. The limitation of only 7 days active out of every 1,000 years means that encountering Jirachi requires incredible timing and luck. Most people in the Pokemon world never see one, knowing them only through ancient stories and legends passed down through generations. This scarcity makes Jirachi perhaps the most unattainable legendary in terms of lore, even if event distributions made it accessible to players. Deoxys originated from space, a virus that mutated when exposed to a laser beam and transformed into a Pokémon. This origin story is pure science fiction, drawing from classic tales of alien life and panspermia, the theory that life might spread through space via comets and meteorites. Deoxys's ability to change between multiple forms, each suited to different combat situations, reflected its viral nature. Viruses constantly mutate and adapt to their environments, and Deoxys does the same, but at will, shifting between normal, attack, defense, and speed forms as needed. The 4th generation introduced legendary Pokémon that operated on a cosmic scale. Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina weren't just powerful creatures, they were fundamental aspects of reality given physical form. Dialga controls time itself, with the Pokédex claiming that time began flowing when Dialga was born. This makes it effectively the second oldest being in the Pokémon universe, created by Arceus to govern temporal flow. Its typing, Steel Dragon, gives it excellent defensive properties, while its signature move, Roar of Time, deals massive damage at the cost of requiring a turn to recharge. The move's name and effect suggest something so powerful that even Dialga must rest after using it, a rare acknowledgement that even godlike beings have limits. Palkia governs space, making it equally fundamental to existence. Without Palkia, physical dimensions couldn't exist. Everything would collapse into a singular point with no distance or volume. Its water dragon typing seems unusual until you consider that water often symbolizes fluidity and adaptability, appropriate for a being that can warp and reshape space itself. Spatial Rend, its signature move, tears through dimensional barriers to strike opponents, with a high critical hit ratio suggesting that it's exploiting weaknesses in the fabric of reality. Giratina represents antimatter and dwells in the distortion world, a dimension where physical laws work differently. Gravity operates strangely there, with platforms floating at odd angles and waterfalls flowing upward. Time might flow differently too, though this is never explicitly stated. Giratina's existence suggests that the Pokemon universe includes multiple dimensions beyond the one humans and Pokemon typically inhabit. The distortion world serves as a sort of mirror realm, reflecting and inverting the normal world's properties. Giratina's banishment to this dimension, punishment for its violence according to legend, creates a tragic element to its story. Unlike Dialga and Palkia, who fulfill their roles freely, Giratina is imprisoned, able to enter the normal world only through portals or when the barrier between dimensions weakens. The creation trio's origin myth is told through fragments scattered across Sinnoh. Ancient texts found in ruins describe Arceus emerging from an egg in the void before reality existed. This egg from nothing concept parallels creation myths from many cultures, where the first being self-generates or emerges from chaos. After creating Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina to shape the universe, Arceus then made Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf to give living things knowledge, emotion, and willpower. These three late guardians are significantly weaker than the creation trio in terms of stats, but their gifts to conscious beings make them equally important. Without Uxie, nothing could learn or remember. Without Mesprit, nothing could feel. Without Azelf, nothing could choose or act with intention. They represent the transition from a purely physical universe to one inhabited by thinking, feeling creatures. The late Guardians' designs are simpler than most legendaries, appearing almost like pixies or fairies with simple colors and large eyes. Uxie's eyes remain closed because looking into them erases memories, a dangerous power that reflects knowledge taken too far. Mesprit fled from the lake after being disturbed, suggesting that emotions cannot be contained or controlled. They must be allowed to flow freely. Azelf's willpower enables others to act, but the Pokédex warns that harming it will leave victims unable to move, paralyzed by the loss of will itself. Heatran represents a more localized legendary, tied specifically to Stark Mountains in Sinnoh. Unlike the reality-warping creation trio, Heatran is simply an incredibly powerful Pokémon that lives in volcanic regions and can walk on magma without harm. Its fire-steel typing creates interesting offensive and defensive properties, giving it 8 resistances and only 3 weaknesses. The fact that Heatran can be either male or female distinguishes it from most legendaries, suggesting that multiple individuals exist rather than a singular entity. This makes it feel more like a rare species than a unique being, similar to Latias and Latios. Regigigas's awakening in Snow Point Temple requires bringing all 3 legendary giants to a specific chamber deep within. This puzzle acknowledged that players who transferred Pokémon from previous generations deserved special rewards. The Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald Regis could be moved forward to Diamond, Pearl, or Platinum, allowing access to Regigigas that players who only owned 4th generation games couldn't achieve. This connectivity between generations rewarded long-term fans while creating a genuine sense that these were living creatures moving between regions rather than just data transfers. Cresselia and Darkrai form an interesting pair, representing good dreams and nightmares respectively. Cresselia appears as a swan-like creature with pink and yellow coloring, gentle and graceful in appearance. Its lunar wing can cure nightmares, and the Pokédex describes it as a symbol of the crescent moon. Darkrai, by contrast, embodies the darkest aspects of sleep. Its very presence causes horrific nightmares, not through conscious choice, but as an inherent property of its existence. This makes Darkrai tragic rather than evil. It wants to avoid causing harm, but cannot control its aura, forcing it into isolation. The New Moon Island encounter with Darkrai became one of the creepiest moments in any Pokémon game. The island itself is small and dark, with dead trees and an ominous atmosphere. Darkrai waits at the center, and approaching it triggers a battle. But even catching Darkrai doesn't resolve the moral question at the heart of its existence. Is it right to capture a creature that inadvertently harms others simply by being near them? Does Darkrai want to be caught, hoping a trainer can help it control its powers, or does it prefer isolation on this lonely island? The games don't answer these questions, leaving players to form their own conclusions. Shaman exists in 2 forms, land and sky, with vastly different appearances and stats. Land form. Shaman resembles a small hedgehog, with flowers growing from its body. It's gentle and timid, living in flower fields and bringing life wherever it goes. Sky form, accessed through using the Gracidea flower item during daytime, transforms it into a sleek, reindeer-like creature capable of flight. This transformation reflects seasonal change, with sky form representing spring's arrival and the bursting of flowers into bloom. The formy change mechanic added depth to what could have been a one-dimensional, cute legendary, giving it versatility in battle and narrative significance. Arceus itself, the supposed creator deity, appears surprisingly simple in design. A white, horse-like body with a golden ring around its midsection and a pointed fence-like structure rising from its back. This simplicity might be intentional, suggesting that the true form of a god cannot be comprehended by mortal minds, and what players see is merely a physical manifestation. The Pokédex entries claim Arceus shaped the universe with its 1,000 arms, yet the creature clearly has 4 legs and no visible arms. This contradiction supports the interpretation that Arceus's true form exists beyond physical reality, and the white equine shape is simply how it chooses to appear to humans and Pokémon. Arceus's signature move, Judgment, changes type based on the plate it holds. The 17 plates scattered across Sinnoh each represent a different type, and when Arceus holds one, it becomes that type, and Judgment deals damage of that type as well. This omni-type ability reinforces its position as the creator of all things, a being not limited by type matchups or conventional battle logic. The base power of Judgment, 100, combined with Arceus's naturally high stats, makes it a formidable opponent. However, its real strength lies in adaptability. An Arceus can be built to fill almost any role on a team, from physical attacker to special wall to speedy sweeper, depending on stat investment and held plate. The fifth generation introduced legendary Pokémon that reflected Western mythology more than previous generations had. Unova's design drew inspiration from New York and the United States rather than Japan, so its legends incorporated different cultural references. Reshiram and Zekrom, the version mascots, represented truth and ideals respectively. Their origin story tells of a single dragon that split into two when twin heroes with opposing philosophies couldn't agree on how to shape their kingdom. Reshiram sided with the hero who valued truth above all, while Zekrom joined the one who prioritized ideals. This created an eternal conflict between two concepts that should theoretically be compatible, but in practice often clash. Reshiram's pure white coloring and flowing mane give it an almost angelic appearance. Its signature move, Blue Flare, deals massive fire damage with imperfect accuracy, suggesting that truth can be destructive and isn't always easy to aim or control. Zekrom appears darker and more mechanical, with turban-like tail that generates electricity. Its signature move, Bolt Strike, requires physical contact but deals tremendous electric damage, implying that ideals must be actively pursued rather than passively observed. The yin-yang symbolism is obvious but effective, creating a legendary pair that feels both alien and familiar. Kyurem represents the empty husk left behind when the original dragons split. Where Reshiram embodies truth and Zekrom represents ideals, Kyurem is the absence of both, a creature defined by what it lacks rather than what it possesses. Its frozen appearance and ice typing suggest something incomplete, a being waiting to be made whole again. The plot of Black 2 and White 2 revolves around Team Plasma's attempt to fuse Kyurem with either Reshiram or Zekrom, creating Black Kyurem or White Kyurem. These fused forms possess incredible power, but still aren't complete. True reunification would require fusing all three, creating the original dragon. The games never allow this, leaving the original dragon as a theoretical concept rather than an obtainable form. The Swords of Justice Quartet draws inspiration from the Three Musketeers, with each member representing a different fighting style and virtue. Cobalion leads the group, a steel fighting type with a serious demeanor and strategic mind. Terrakion serves as the group's powerhouse, a rock fighting type with immense physical strength. Virizion balances them as a grass fighting type, focusing on speed and special attacks. Keldeo, the youngest member, is water fighting and represents the apprentice learning from masters. The quartet's backstory involves protecting Pokémon during a human war that destroyed forests and habitats. This gives them a more grounded mythology than reality-warping gods or primordial titans. They're heroes in the classical sense, individuals who chose to stand against injustice and protect those weaker than themselves. Tornadus, Thundurus, and Landorus form the forces of nature trio, each one representing a weather phenomenon. Tornadus controls wind and appears as a flying type, unusual for being the only pure flying type legendary until later generations. Thundurus commands thunder and lightning through electric flying typing. Landorus masters the earth and provides balance between the other two through ground flying typing. Their designs in incarnate form draw from Japanese kami or spirits, with cloud-like tails and fierce expressions. Therian form, unlocked through the reveal glass, transforms them into more animalistic shapes, resembling a bird, a serpent, and a land shark, respectively. Meloetta brings music to the legendary roster, a normal psychic type that can transform into normal fighting type through its pirouette form. This form change mechanic tied directly to its signature move, Relic Song, which dealt damage and then triggered the transformation. Meloetta's mythology describes it as a muse that inspired human artists throughout history, suggesting that creativity itself has a Pokémon origin. The aria and pirouette forms represent two aspects of performance: the calm singing voice and the dynamic dancer's body. Genesect's story is perhaps the darkest in the franchise. This bug steel type is an ancient Pokémon that Team Plasma scientists resurrected and modified with a cannon grafted onto its back. The Pokédex reveals that the original Genesect lived 300 million years ago as a fearsome hunter, the apex predator of its era. Team Plasma enhanced it, adding the cannon and updating its programming to create a perfect weapon. But the scientists underestimated their creation. Genesect escaped, and the facility was shut down. What makes this especially disturbing is the violation it represents. Genesect didn't choose this transformation. It was altered against its will, turned into something it wasn't supposed to be. The fact that it can still use the cannon effectively suggests some instinct or intelligence adapted to the new equipment, but we don't know if Genesect accepts this new body or resents the changes forced upon it. The 6th generation centered its legendary trio around life, death, and balance. Xerneas embodies life itself, a fairy-type deer with rainbow antlers that can share eternal life with those around it. The Pokédex claims that when Xerneas's horns shine in 7 colors, it's granting everlasting life. This makes it one of the most powerful legendaries in terms of lore, as immortality is typically beyond even legendary Pokémon's abilities. Yveltal represents death and destruction, a dark flying type whose wings spread wide in a threatening display. When Yveltal's life ends, it supposedly absorbs life energy from everything around it before turning into a cocoon, creating a catastrophic event that devastates entire regions. Zygarde maintains balance between these two extremes. Starting at 50% form, it appears as a serpentine creature made of cellular components. When the world tips too far toward creation or destruction, Zygarde assembles more cells to reach its complete form, a massive humanoid figure with multiple wings and a powerful presence. This adaptive transformation reflects its role as an equalizer, becoming stronger or weaker depending on what the situation requires. The various Zygarde forms also showcase different approaches to the same concept, with 10% form being a quick dog like scout and complete form being an immovable fortress. The Island Guardians of Alola introduced a new kind of legendary. Tapu Koko, Tapu Lele, Tapu Bulu, and Tapu Fini each protect one of the four main islands, serving as deity like figures that bless or punish humans based on their actions. All four share the fairy typing, paired with a secondary type matching their domain. Tapu Soko pairs fairy with electric, representing the active, energetic nature of Melemele Island. Tapu Lele combines fairy with psychic, reflecting Akala Island's focus on harmony and mental strength. Tapu Bulu brings together fairy and grass for Ula Ula Island's connection to tradition and growth. Tapu Fini merges fairy with water, embodying Pony Island's mysteries and the ocean's depths. Each Tapu has its own personality and relationship with its island's inhabitants. Tapu Koko acts as both protector and challenger, testing those it deems worthy through battle. It gave the player character their Z-ring, initiating them into Alola's traditions. Tapu Lele appears more capricious, sometimes helping humans and sometimes causing harm through careless use of its scales, which can heal or enhance those who touch them, but might also lead to dependency or reckless behavior. Tapu Bulu grows lazy at times, sleeping for extended periods and ignoring its duties, yet it becomes fiercely protective when its island faces genuine danger. Tapu Fini maintains distance from humans, considering most unworthy of its attention, but those who prove themselves might receive its blessing in the form of a purifying mist. The Ultra Beasts represent creatures from another dimension entirely, beings so alien that normal Pokeballs cannot catch them without Beast Ball technology. Nihilego resembles a parasitic jellyfish, capable of merging with and controlling hosts. Buzzwole appears as a muscular mosquito that flexes and poses constantly. Pheromosa moves with incredible grace and speed, refusing to touch anything it considers dirty. Xurkitree exists as pure electricity given form, more energy than matter. Celesteela looks like a bamboo shoot crossed with a rocket, capable of space travel. Kartana is a tiny creature made of folded paper that can slice through anything. Guzzlord is a walking black hole that consumes everything in its path. Each Ultra Beast comes from a world where it's normal, not a monster or anomaly, but simply another inhabitant of its dimension. This makes them tragic in a sense. Pulled through ultra wormholes into Alola's dimension, they don't belong here and might just want to return home. The international police create a task force to capture and return these creatures, recognizing them not as invasive pests, but as displaced beings deserving compassion. This moral complexity elevates Ultra Beasts above typical legendary encounters. Necrozma commands light itself, a psychic type that appears in 3 forms. Base Necrozma looks incomplete, all sharp angles and crystalline structure, with glowing points suggesting barely contained energy. Dusk Mane. Necrozma forms when it merges with Solgaleo, gaining steel typing and a fierce appearance. Dawnwing's Necrozma results from fusion with Lunala, adding ghost type and creating a more ethereal presence. Ultra Necrozma transcends both, becoming a dragon psychic type that radiates light in all directions. The lore describes Necrozma as once being a being of pure light that shared its radiance freely. But something damaged it, draining its light and leaving it desperately seeking any source to fill the void inside. This makes it a villain in the Alola games, but also a victim, something wounded that lashes out in pain rather than malice. Solgaleo and Lunala represent the sun and moon, though they're not actually celestial bodies, but creatures that embody their properties. Solgaleo is a psychic steel type that carries the sun's power, its Sunsteel Strike, ignoring abilities that would normally protect opponents. Lunala commands the moon as a psychic ghost type, its Moongeist beam similarly bypassing protective abilities. Both evolved from Cosmoem, which itself came from Cosmog, a gaseous Pokémon that barely weighs anything. The evolution line suggests that stars and planets might originate from these tiny, cloudy beings, giving the Pokémon universe a creation myth for celestial objects themselves. Magearna stands out as the only legendary confirmed to be artificial, built by human hands 500 years before the Kalos storyline. Created to serve royalty, Magearna contains a device called the Soul Heart that allows it to sense others' emotions and pain. This emotional awareness, paired with its mechanical nature, creates fascinating contradictions. It's a machine that feels, an artificial being with genuine compassion. The Soul Heart might be technology, or it might be something more, perhaps a genuine soul bound into mechanical form. The games never clarify, leaving Magearna's true nature ambiguous. Marshadow dwells in shadows, a fighting ghost type so obscure that few people in the Pokémon world even know it exists. It watches others from their shadows, copying their techniques and movements. This makes it the ultimate student, learning through observation without revealing its presence. Marshadow's signature move, Spectral Thief, steals stat boosts from opponents before dealing damage, reflecting its copycat nature mechanically. The move even ignores substitutes and protections, much like Marshadow itself exists undetected in shadows where normal beings cannot perceive it. Zeraora generates electricity but holds the rare distinction of being electric type without second typing. This pure electric legendary moves with incredible speed, its signature move, Plasma Fists, turning all normal type moves into electric type for the rest of the turn. This ability to electrify the battlefield creates unique support possibilities, while Zeraora itself strikes with physical electric attacks that most would expect to come from special attackers. Melton and Melmetal originated in Pokémon Go before being added to the core games, making them the first legendary line to follow this path. Melton appears as a tiny steel type with a nut for a head and liquid metal body. In Go, players could encounter swarms of Melton and collect enough to evolve one into Melmetal, a massive steel type with hex nut hands. This evolution represents industrialization in a sense. Many small components coming together to create something greater. Melmetal's signature move, Double Iron Bash, strikes twice with a chance to flinch, turning its powerful arms into devastating weapons. The 8th generation brought Dynamax and Gigantamax mechanics that affected legendary encounters. Eternatus caused the darkest day in Galar's history, releasing energy that allowed Pokémon to Gigantamax uncontrollably. Its base form appears sleek and serpentine, but Eternamax Eternatus transforms into a massive, hand-shaped being with the highest base stat total of any Pokémon at 1125. This form cannot be captured or used, existing only as a raid boss during the climax of Sword and Shield's story. Zacian and Zamazenta protect Galar as the hero duo, legendary wolves that once defeated Eternatus alongside human heroes. Zacian carries a sword in its mouth and becomes fairy steel type when holding the rusted sword, while Zamazenta bears a shield-like mane and gains fighting steel type with the rusted shield. Their signature moves, Behemoth Blade and Behemoth Bash, deal double damage to Dynamaxed opponents, perfect for their role as Eternatus's counter. Kubfu and Urshifu introduce the concept of legendary Pokémon with branching evolution paths. Kubfu is a fighting type that trains in the Tower of Darkness or Tower of Waters on the Isle of Armor, evolving into Single Strike Urshifu or Rapid Strike Urshifu respectively. Single Strike gains dark typing and focuses on powerful singular attacks, while Rapid Strike adds water type and specializes in multi-hit combinations. Both can Gigantamax, with Single Strike becoming a Gig 1 blow and Rapid Strike transforming into Gig Rapid Strike. Calyrex rules over the Crown Tundra as a psychic grass-type king whose power waned over generations as belief in it faded. With the Reigns of Unity, it can merge with either Glastrier or Spectrier to regain its former strength. Glastrier is a pure ice-type horse that creates a path of ice wherever it runs, becoming Calyrex's steed to form Ice Rider Calyrex. Spectrier appears as a ghost type that steals life force from living things, partnering with Calyrex to create Shadow Rider Calyrex. Both fused forms drastically increase Calyrex's stats and change its signature move from the mediocre Psyshock to the devastating Glacial Lance or Astral Barrage. Zarude distinguishes itself as the first dark grass legendary, a mythical Pokémon that lives in packs deep in forests. Unlike most mythical creatures depicted as singular entities, multiple Zarude exist across the Pokémon world. They typically avoid humans, but one Zarude in the movie Secrets of the Jungle adopted and raised a human child. This Zarude, called Dada Zarude, gained a scarf from its child and developed a gentler personality than most of its species, showing how environment and relationships can shape even mythical Pokémon. The 9th generation brought Paradox Pokémon, creatures from the past or future that entered the present through time machine experiments in Area Zero. Great Tusk resembles an ancient Donphan, while Iron Treads appears as a futuristic mechanical version. These and other paradoxes blur the line between legendary and non legendary, as they're rare and powerful, but exist in multiple specimens rather than as unique beings. The game never clarifies whether they're truly from other times or created through human imagination crystallized by Terrapagos' power. Koraidon and Miraidon serve as the primary legendaries of Scarlet and Violet, represented as ancient and future forms of Cyclizar. Koraidon is a fighting dragon type with prehistoric appearance and abilities linked to its powerful heart rate. Miraidon combines electric dragon typing with futuristic aesthetics, its power sourced from advanced internal generators. Both can shift between different modes that change their stats and abilities, representing the various vehicles the player rides. The treasures of Ruin Quartet spread calamity wherever they appear. Wo Chien resembles a wooden snail. Chien Pao looks like a saber-toothed tiger made of ice and hate. Ting Lu appears as an elk with a bronze vessel on its back. And Chai Yu takes the form of fish made of pure malice. Each one was sealed away in a shrine after causing disasters in Paldea's past, their very existence tied to ancient cursed objects. Breaking the seals and capturing them prevents future catastrophes, but also releases beings of concentrated negative emotion into the world once more. The Loyal Three, Okidogi, Munkadori, and Fazandipiti, represent another subversion of legendary expectations. Initially presented as heroes who protected Kitakami from a monstrous ogre, the truth reveals them as greedy thieves who stole masks from the real hero, Ogerpon. Their poison typings reflect their moral corruption, while their normal appearances mask the darkness within. When Pecharunt revives them with its toxic mochi, they become even more dangerous, showing how power without virtue leads to destruction. Ogerpon itself becomes the protagonist of Kitakami's true story, a grass type that channels different powers through its 4 masks. Each mask changes its type and provides access to a powerful signature move in its terastallized state. The teal mask keeps it pure grass, Wellspring mask adds water, Hearthflame mask brings fire, and Cornerstone mask introduces rock typing. Ogerpon's story of being misunderstood and vilified despite its heroic actions adds emotional depth rare among legendary Pokémon. Terrapagos exists as the source of terastallization itself, a turtle-like Pokémon with a crystalline shell that can manipulate type energy. Its 3 forms represent different states of power, with stellar form unleashing its full potential. The stellar type, introduced with Terrapagos, allows it to become super effective against all types once per battle, representing its mastery over type energy itself. Terrapagos' connection to the Crystal Pool and Area Zero suggests it might be responsible for both terastallization and the Time Machine, though the full truth remains partially hidden. Throughout all these generations, legendary Pokémon have served as focal points for each region's mythology and identity. They represent natural forces, abstract concepts, or historical events turned into living embodiments. Some act as protectors, others as destroyers, and many as both, depending on circumstances. What remains constant is their ability to inspire awe and wonder, to make the Pokemon world feel larger and more mysterious than any single trainer could fully understand. They remind us that even in a world where humans partner with creatures and capture them in tiny spheres, some things remain beyond complete control or comprehension. They exist in that space between the natural and supernatural, the known and unknown, inviting us to keep exploring and discovering what else might be waiting in distant regions or hidden dimensions. The relationships between legendaries add another layer of complexity. Some oppose each other eternally, like Kyogre and Groudon or Dialga and Palkia. Others work in harmony, like the Lake Guardians supporting the Creation Trio or the legendary birds serving under Lugia's watch. Still others exist in isolation, like Giratina, trapped in the Distortion world, or Darkrai exiled to New Moon Island. These relationships mirror human social structures, showing that even beings of immense power experience connection, conflict, cooperation, and loneliness. The evolution of legendary design over 9 generations shows increasing complexity and narrative integration. Early legendaries like the birds or beasts had simple backstories and existed primarily as powerful Pokémon to catch. Later legendaries became central to plots, with mascots like Dialga and Palkia or Zacian and Zamazenta driving entire storylines. Recent additions like the Paradox Pokémon and Ogerpon weave into narratives that question truth, perception, and the nature of legends themselves. Competitive play has shaped legendary Pokémon too. Creatures deemed too powerful get banned to special formats where only the mightiest can compete. Mega Rayquaza dominated so thoroughly it received its own ban list tier. Eternamax Eternatus cannot be used at all in standard play. Others, like the Tapas or Forces of Nature, find niches in regular competitive scenes, powerful but not overwhelming. This constant balancing act between lore and gameplay creates interesting tensions. A god of time should theoretically be unstoppable, but Dialga needs counterplay options to keep matches interesting. The accessibility of legendary Pokémon has changed dramatically too. Original games made most legendaries one-time encounters, forcing players to save beforehand and soft reset until they caught their target. Modern games often let players return after defeating the Elite Four if they accidentally knock out a legendary. Dynamax Adventures in Crown Tundra guaranteed legendary encounters for everyone. This shift recognizes that frustration isn't the same as challenge, and that more players should experience these creatures firsthand. Shiny hunting for legendaries represents dedication bordering on obsession. With shiny odds typically at 1 in 4,096 in modern games, potentially encountering thousands of Dialgas before finding a black gold variant requires patience measured in weeks or months. Some legendaries become shiny locked, unable to appear in alternate colors through normal gameplay. This creates a secondary layer of rarity, where a shiny Rayquaza or shiny Xerneas becomes a trophy few will ever legitimately obtain. The trade value of legendary Pokémon in player communities reflects their narrative importance. A competitive ready legendary with perfect stats and ideal nature might be worth dozens of regular Pokemon in trades. Event exclusive legendaries like Mew or Jirachi command even higher prices. This artificial economy shows how the game's systems create genuine value through scarcity and desirability, turning data into something people invest significant time acquiring. Legendary signature moves often break normal rules. Rayquaza's Dragon Ascent drops its defenses while dealing damage, a necessary risk for such power. Kyogre's Origin Pulse hits multiple opponents simultaneously in double battles. Dialga's Roar of Time forces a recharge turn. These mechanics reinforce each legendary's unique identity through gameplay rather than just lore, making them feel distinct even in battle. The types chosen for legendary Pokémon follow interesting patterns. Dragon appears frequently, reinforcing the association between dragons and legendary status across many cultures. Psychic shows up constantly too, suggesting that mental power and mysticism link closely to legendary nature. Steel provides defensive stability for several groups, like the legendary giants or Dialga. Flying connects many legendaries to the heavens and divine realms. These type choices aren't random, but reflect deep decisions about what makes creatures feel legendary. Legendary Pokemon's base stat totals create clear tiers. The Creation Trio and other box legends typically sit at 680, making them substantially stronger than most species. Lower tier legendaries like the birds or tapas range from 580 to 590, powerful but not overwhelming. Arceus and other supreme beings reach 720, indicating their position as the absolute pinnacle. These numerical distinctions matter in competitive play, but also communicate hierarchy through game mechanics. The role of legendary Pokémon in the anime differs significantly from the games. There, legendaries often appear as one-of-a-kind beings with godlike power that can reshape weather or control time. Ash encounters multiple legendaries throughout his journey, witnessing their power but rarely catching them. The movies especially feature legendaries as central figures, from Mewtwo's existential crisis to Giratina's dimensional conflicts. This creates a version of legendary Pokémon that's more fantastical and less attainable than their game counterparts. Different cultures within the Pokémon world interpret legendaries through their own lens. Sinnoh's creation myths center on Arceus and the Lake Guardians. Hoenn tells stories of Kyogre and Groudon shaping the world. Unova speaks of Reshiram and Zekrom splitting from a single dragon. These regional variations show that legendary status isn't universal, but culturally constructed. What one region considers divine, another might see as simply very powerful. This relativism makes the Pokémon world feel more realistic, as different peoples develop different mythologies around the same events. The environmental impact of legendary Pokémon creates another interesting angle. When Kyogre awakens, it causes flooding that displaces countless Pokémon and people. Groudon's eruptions destroy habitats. Yveltal's death absorbs life energy from entire regions. These aren't malicious acts, but natural consequences of beings whose very existence affects reality. It raises questions about whether containing such creatures helps or harms the world, whether they belong in Pokeballs or roaming free where they can maintain natural balance. The breeding mechanics create clear distinctions. Most legendary Pokémon cannot breed at all, classified as undiscovered egg group. This reinforces their unique nature, but also means competitive players must hunt for perfect specimens rather than breeding them. Exceptions like Manaphy, which breeds with Ditto to produce Phione, hint that some legendaries might be capable of reproduction, but simply choose not to or require special conditions. Kubfu breeding would logically produce more Kubfu, but the games prevent this, suggesting that Isle of Armor's Kubfu represents the last of its line. The connection between legendary Pokémon and the environment manifests in various ways. Celebi guards forests through time. Shaman brings flowers and life to barren lands. The forces of nature control weather patterns. Xerneas creates life itself. These ecological roles position legendaries as keystone species, organisms whose presence fundamentally shapes entire ecosystems. Removing them would cause cascading effects that destabilize regions. This makes conservation of legendary Pokémon not just morally right, but ecologically necessary. Technology interacts strangely with legendary Pokémon. Master Balls supposedly catch anything with guaranteed success, but lore suggests truly powerful legendaries might resist even these. The Time Machine in Paldea brought paradox Pokémon from other eras, showing that human technology can now manipulate time, a domain once exclusive to Dialga. This increasing intersection between technology and legendary power suggests future conflicts where humans might challenge or replicate abilities once thought divine. The morality of capturing legendary Pokémon becomes a question few trainers stop to consider. These beings often have responsibilities, like Rayquaza maintaining balance between Kyogre and Groudon, or the Tapas protecting their islands. Removing them from their roles might seem selfish, prioritizing a trainer's desire to have a powerful team member over the needs of entire regions. Some games address this by having legendaries choose to join the player after being impressed by their strength or character. Others ignore the question entirely, treating legendaries as simply rare Pokémon waiting to be caught. The relationship between legendary and mythical Pokémon creates taxonomic confusion. Originally, all rare, powerful Pokémon were called legendary. Later, mythical became a subcategory for event-exclusive creatures like Mew, Celebi, or Jirachi. This distinction matters for competitive rule sets, but feels arbitrary in lore terms. Why is Heatran legendary while Manaphy is mythical when both are rare, powerful, and tied to specific locations? The answer seems to be distribution method rather than in-universe logic, showing how gameplay considerations sometimes override narrative consistency. The symbolism embedded in legendary Pokemon designs repays close examination. Dialga's body features diamond patterns reflecting its game of origin. Palkia's pearls reference pearl version. Giratina's ghost typing and antimatter theme create a dark inversion of its siblings. Reshiram's white coloring and truth theme contrast Zekrom's black appearance and ideal focus. These visual metaphors communicate information instantly, allowing players to grasp a legendary's nature before reading Pokédex entries or experiencing their powers. The music accompanying legendary encounters enhances their mystique. Ominous strings swell as Giratina emerges from the distortion world. Ethereal chimes announce Cresselia's appearance. Electronic distortions underscore Ultra Beast battles. These soundtracks signal that something abnormal is happening, that regular battle rules might not apply. Thank you for spending this time with me tonight. I hope these facts about legendary Pokemon helped you relax and maybe taught you something new about these incredible creatures. If you enjoyed this journey together, let me know by liking this video. And if you'd like to explore more Pokemon mysteries and histories as you drift off to sleep, check out the Pokemon to Sleep to playlist right there on your screen. It's filled with hours of gentle exploration through this world we all love. Rest well, and may your dreams be filled with legendary adventures.